The technical difficulties weren't too difficult to figure out once I woke up. Now, in Apple, that little icon up there is the display. Somehow it got switched to, so I don't know how it happened. It got switched so it wasn't mirroring the desktop. So anyway, it only took a student worker about 5 seconds to come over to my office and say, "Did you do that?" Okay, I said, "Yes." And the weirdest thing is when you couldn't see anything, you just see the desktop, the background. When I closed the laptop, the thing that was on the desktop with the figures and everything actually showed up. So when you all left, I could see it. So I could have lectured and open and closed the thing every time I wanted to go to the next slide, but anyway. So did you have a chance to watch the videos? Okay. So let me just go over. The exam is on Tuesday. We'll have a chance today. I'm going to go through a work problem. I'm going to go through a little bit of the homework, like map some of the character changes on one of the homeworks to and then the homework will be due a week from today rather than Tuesday. Okay, so that'll give you a chance to do that and get some exercise, practice doing that. And I'd work in groups if you want to on the homework and see if you come up with the same answer. I'll go through some of those steps. So I decided not to do 20 questions. That's going to be too many. They're going to be 15 multiple choice questions, okay? They're going to be two kind of problems. One will be a phylogenetics problem, and the other one will be kind of a eusociality problem, and I'm happy to discuss that. And then there'll be two kind of short answer questions. And I would really focus around species concepts, speciation, lots of kind of some of the things we've been spending a lot of time on. So I will try. My schedule on Monday is a nightmare. I think the only time I have is about 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 4. Yeah, I'm going to record it. So I will check with, I think this room is available, but I'll let you know when that, and I'll record it this time. Hopefully it'll work and everything should be fine. So I'll record that review session and I'll send an email out about that. Okay. I think that's it. Now, what I want to do first is the thing you have to be able to do from this original matrix, and I will always have what I call an outgroup, right? And the outgroup, what's the outgroup used when we do what's called parsimony? Do you remember how do we use that? Yeah, that's the basis by which we determine the ancestral character states, in this particular case, at these 7 nucleotide sites. So we say that's the common ancestor to all of these 4 species within the in-group. And we're trying to really resolve the phylogenetic relationships among these 4 species based on, say, these 7 nucleotides. Obviously, we have often millions of base pairs or tens of thousands of base pairs. And obviously, you would never do this by hand, and I've never done this by hand. So, and there are a lot of sophisticated computer algorithms to do this. But, it's like everything else. We make you do this stuff by hand for I don't know why. So anyway, okay. So one of the things you want to be able to do, and I'm not going to make it I'm not going to have I'm not going to have like 10 species and 20 base pairs and spending all your time trying to count up everything. It'll be simple like this, okay? It'll be an outgroup, probably 4 species, and I'll want you to be able to determine how to create the tree, map the character state changes on a tree, and then I'll give you an alternative tree, and you map the character state changes on it to see which is more parsimonious and which is the better tree, okay? Presumably, what I hope you get, when you derive the tree from your shared character matrix, that should presumably be the best one. I'll probably give you an alternative one that's the worst one, and you should have more steps on it, I hope, okay? Okay. So are there any questions about how you get these numbers in this matrix? Do you want me to go through an example? Okay. So let's go through. So what each one of these represents is this is the number of shared derived characters between what? A and B, that's A and C, that's A and D, that's B and C, that's B and D, and that's C and D, right? So it's basically above this diagonal that you fill in that particular part of it, okay? And where do we get those data? Where do we get those numbers? From up here, right? Okay, so let's look at a simple one. A and B, what we're saying is those two share one derived character in common, right? And where do you get that? Which one is it? Yeah, it's under the first nucleotide site. Both of them have the ancestral state is G, and the derived state is C. Okay, so they share, that's one. Are there any others? They share others in common, but why don't we include them in the matrix? Why don't we include that one? Right, because it's a shared ancestral character state. All of them have G. Nothing's changed from the outgroup to the in-group, okay? Obviously, they're different here. They're still the same here, right? But again, it's ancestral. See, those two are still ancestral, and there they differ. So for those A and B, they only have one derived character state in common at nucleotide site 1, okay? Let's go to a little more complicated one, right? Here's where you get 3, right? B and C share 3 derived character states in common. So B and C, where are they? There's one, right? B and C have a derived character state in common. Where's the other one? Right here. It changed from a T to a C, and both B and C have it. So that's 2. Nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. And that's 3, okay? It changed from an ancestral state of G to each of them having C. So there, those two species, B and C, share 3 in common, okay? And then obviously, which pairs of sisters, which species share the most in common? C and D, right? They have 5 of these nucleotide sites that they share a derived character state in common with one another. And so the idea here is you pull those pairs of taxa that have the highest number, pull those off first, right? So what I did here is that's the highest number in that original matrix, and you pull off C and D. Now what you do is are these reduced matrices, and C and D are now combined together in that matrix, okay? And so you have A, B, C, and D, and obviously I could have put C and D down here, but it's just it's just a dash. Okay? So which thing pulls off next in the phylogenetic tree based on that matrix? B, right? B shares 3 character states in common kind of with the composite of species C and D, okay? So you pull that one off, and once you have those 3, you only have one left. A has to come off next, so you don't have to do another matrix, okay? So do you all understand how you got this? Right. So you got to go up here, right? You got to use kind of this original matrix. And you kind of got to get the average. And the average is how many do B and C have, right, from that original matrix? And what is it? It's 3. And what do B and D? So you kind of just go boop, boop. What are those 2 numbers? B and C is 3. B and D is 3. So what's the average? 6 divided by 2. Okay? So it's kind of the average number shared in common between species B and that kind of composite, basically at this ancestral node is what you're doing. Okay? So that's 3, and then that's the highest number in this matrix, and that's where you pull that off. Okay? So, try to make sure you know how to do this. I will make it fairly simple. It'll probably just be an outgroup in 4 taxa. Okay? And you'll only have to do 2 matrices, the original one and hopefully one reduced one, or maybe just this one. So, okay? Okay, so now what we did, we mapped the character state changes onto that tree that we got, right? Does everybody see how we do that? And what we're about ready to do next is an extra credit problem, is a group problem, okay? So here's what we did. We mapped the changes in these derived characters on this given phylogenetic tree. 1 change to C, you can do 1 G to C, however you want to do it, but I usually just do 1 to C. That's the derived character. We basically said, and the outgroup could be up here. You could put another branch there, but we just put one C change, and all four have that, and that derived character state in common. 3C, we put on the common ancestor to B, C, and D. Why did we do that? Well, if you go back up into this matrix, where did that change from the ancestral state to the derived state? In the common ancestor to all three of those species. So all B, C, and D have a C, and so you put that tick mark, that's where it originated, and all three have it. The same thing with 7, right? 7 is the same thing. It changed from a G to a C in the common ancestor to B, C, and D, so you put it there. And then the other two are C and D, or for 5 and 6, right? They changed in the common ancestor to C and D from the ancestral state. And we have one character missing. Why isn't it marked on the tree? One site. Yeah, 4 is not on that tree, right? Because it's a non-variable site. It hasn't changed from the common ancestor, okay? So what this means is this particular tree has 5 evolutionary steps or character changes to the derived state on it. So 5. Now what I want you to do as a group is map the characters. This is an alternative tree, right? And out of 4 taxa, you can actually come up with 3 alternative trees. And so this is what all the computer programs do right now using parsimony, is they can create all the possible trees, and once it gets into the millions, or as you saw, billions, it becomes a little computationally difficult. So there are other things that they often do, but this is what a lot of the parsimony-based problems do, is they create all these alternative trees and then count up the number of steps. And the one that has the fewest is, by parsimony, the one we want, okay? The one that's best supported. Okay, so what I want you to do is map these character state changes onto this tree as a group. A little extra credit. Okay, 2 points. So work in groups, map the changes onto the tree, and then tell me the number of steps that you get. So this might take 10 minutes maybe. So, okay. So you're going from this and mapping the character states onto that. Okay. And you can turn your desks around if it's better to talk to one another. So. Yeah, only that one. Just that tree. Yep.
I just want to ask a question.
Okay.
Um, uh, so, since these two have the same one, say for three,
Right.
and
There's-
also and D also,
Right.
so would it be better for a change to occur for all of them and an A change back, or would it be better?
Do it either way.
Okay.
Yep. They give you the same number of steps. That's why I'm going to talk about this, about how it. There's some debate about how it should be done, but so.
Yeah, he said it was. I was just asking whether it was better to change A and change A back, or change each step
Yeah, there's a question about. We'll talk about you map derived character state changes or reversion to ancestral character state changes. So we'll talk about that after you finish.
Well, it's B and C. Because you can go and see B and C. They both changed on both 3 and 7. They both changed to C on row 3 of column 3. And on row C and D, they both changed to C. That's why I'm putting it here, because the change occurs for both of them, so we can group them together. And then yeah, and for the other one, no changes on this one. None of these don't change together, which is why you see that this is not a symmetry. That one is much better to sit at one is important because you sit at A is alone, which is why I want to make sure that which is what makes sense because this has no changes except for one. But besides that one change, it's the same as the on the algorithm compared with A. So there's only one change in the entire genome you have left. So this one should be alone. They could like detail more there, but yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay, they get extra points for handing in so quickly. I'm just kidding. Let's try to let's try to finish up by 10. I think that should be enough time. Okay.
Three changes on this one. So it's going to be 7C, 3C,
Oh, write the number of steps on your thing. Well, I can count them, I guess. Just write the number of steps. Yeah.
First thing we do is because all of them change, right? So the first one is G to C. So right, step one, G to C because they all change. All phylogenetic tree changes on this step. Then we branch out because in this group changes together. Both of them change.
A lot of people are getting the right answer. So.
And then this group, only D makes those changes. So D changes individually. And that's when we get the position of this branch because it doesn't apply to all of them. So you can look at the steps right now. You see that then
Thanks.
B, C, and D change the same way, not A. So you can't put the change right here. And then on this branch, you see that C changes at 6 and 5, but B doesn't. So this change can't go here because it doesn't apply to B. So you put it right here because it only applies to C. So each step further back you take, the more it applies to. So at this step, you see that it only applies to D, right? Because this branch only is to D. At this step, you make a change here. Both of these, with this branch, you apply both of these to B and C. And at this step, it applies to all, right? So the only thing that applies to all of them is one, C, right? Why you should kind of see this. This is not a very effective tree because it has no changes inside this one, so D changes as well up here. You see that D has the same changes as B and C almost. So that's why that tree is much more efficient. C and D have the exact same changes, like 65A, 65A, 66. These two are exactly the same. They should be together, right? Like in that tree they are. And in B has only one difference from C and D. Well, two differences. But it has 3C and 7C, which it doesn't have, which A doesn't have. So the fact that B has these two changes, that should make change B and C. And since it has those changes, it makes it closer to C and D. So that's you can see why they're closer on that tree. I'm sure you get how the radius, you see that. You see that you're getting closer and closer together. So B is 6 attacks when together, like the combination of C and D. Back off of that. This tree is not very effective from the start. We have so many steps that you can do. Like, if we group them differently, you do this, and this step, and make it combine them, C and D changes together instead of having B and D. Because now we have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5,
Oh, yeah. I'm
6,
going to
7,
do it.
8, 9.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to do this as soon as you turn it in. So. Any others? Okay. Oh. Any others? Oh. Is that it? Okay. How many steps? 9. Okay. There are various ways to get to 9, though. So let's go through this. Okay? So let's map the character state changes. Where does 1 change? Yep. Okay. That's easy. What about 2? Nothing there, right? 3. Now you could map that a couple. You have to map it. There are going to be 2 character state changes. There are various ways to do this, though. So one option is to put the change to C at the base of the tree, right? And then what do you have to do? You have to change it. You have to change A back to the ancestral state along that branch, right? That's going to give you 2 tick marks no matter how you do it. But that's what's called the reversion to the ancestral state. In general, most people want to avoid that. Okay? So and it doesn't really matter in terms of the number of steps, and on your homework, you'll notice I say do not do reversion to ancestral states. Only use map derived character states onto the tree. Okay? So how do we then map derived character states changes onto this tree where B, C, and D have a C? Where would we put that? Yeah, B and C, you're going to put one there, right? And where's the other one going? On D, right? So that's where you have sort of the independent origin of the derived character state on both of those branches. You know, and some of you, it's fine. If you put ancestral character state, you know, the reversion to the ancestral character state, that's okay in A, but it still gives you 2 marks, so it doesn't really matter. But in general, most people want to use mapping the shared derived character states onto the tree. Okay, 4, what do we have? Nothing, right? C and D, what do we have? Or I'm sorry, 5. Where C and D are derived, where do you put those? Yeah, so you got to do 2 tick marks, right? They're derived independently. So that's going to be 5A, and then along D is going to be 5A, okay? So those are those 2. What about 6? Same thing, right? Six to the derived state of T, same thing on this branch. Okay, and then the last thing is 7. Does that look familiar? That's where you have the revert, you know, you don't want to do the reversion back, so what do you have to do? You have to do B and C have what? 7C. And then where do you put the other change to C? On D. Okay? So that's what that's the preference, is to map the derived character states independently rather than the reversion to the ancestral character state. Does that make sense? Okay. Either way, you'll get the same answer. So what's the answer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Which tree is better? The original one, right? Okay. So we would reject that as an alternative, that is a less parsimonious tree. It has more evolutionary steps that are required to get that tree, and we would prefer the other one, yeah. That's in fact why there are a whole series of different approaches to phylogenetic tree reconstruction besides parsimony, including what's called maximum likelihood and all sorts of other methods that in fact are much more commonly used now. So, but in general, that's kind of a philosophy that parsimony is, simpler explanations are preferred over more complicated explanations. Doesn't mean they're always correct. And again, the important thing to recognize is that tree is the best, right, based on that particular data. So, and it's only 7 nucleotides. It's also maybe there are other data that contradict that hypothesis, and that's also very common too. So, all I'm presenting is a fairly it's kind of a simplistic way of approaching it. Okay. Okay, does that make sense? Was that helpful? Okay. So be ready to, Oh, how many? Well, so he asked how many nucleotides do you really need to create a robust phylogeny? So I worked on, my last PhD student worked on, in Mexico, in cave and surface dwelling fishes. And these were multiple populations, some cave and surface populations very closely related to one another, and we had about 45 populations. And he did what's called next generation sequencing, where you generate literally millions of sequences, millions of nucleotides per individual. So that's what most people are doing now. And guess what? We got a very well-supported phylogeny. So that's what's happening in evolutionary biology and also in all sorts of disciplines, is the use of what's called next generation sequencing and genome sequencing to get a much better resolution of these phylogenies. So if you have a lot of taxa, right, and you're trying to determine the phylogenetic relationships, you have to use a lot of data to resolve them, is the general take-home message. Okay. Let's, do you want me to go through one of your homework problems? Yeah, do you have a question?
Well, I was going to ask because on the video you mentioned that the 2 times they have numbers that are equal in the second part, the shape round characters get 5. Say another one with equal number.
Right. Right.
Homework is one like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing to recognize, right, if you develop this original matrix, right, and let's imagine C and D had 5 in common, and B and A had 5 in common, what would you do? Right. Well, okay. So let's say that B and C, let me just, let me just do this. Okay. So let's say, again, you had another data set, right? And C and D had, 10, and A and B had 10. What would you do? What I would do, that's what I would do. Then what would you do? Would you do another matrix? You wouldn't have to, right? Now, if there were, so basically you have all of the taxa in the in group have been pulled out, and what do you have to do now? And that's your tree. So in that particular case, if you had 2 sets of species, sister taxa that have the same number of shared derived character states in common, you would pull those off, and you wouldn't have to do another matrix. Don't you hope you have a question like that on the exam? Yes. You want a question like that on the exam? Okay. We'll see. Okay? So in that particular case, if you had that, that's how you would do it. So you would not have, if you have all the taxa pulled out in the in group, right, associated with, in those clades, you don't have to do another matrix, right? You just have to draw the common ancestor to them. Okay? Do you want me to do one of these? Just start it, and then this is part of your homework. Nope. Nope, you don't have to do, yeah. So on the homework, I'm not asking you, all I'm asking you to do is to map the character state changes on those 3 alternative trees. I'm not asking, no, you don't have to do the shared, the matrix at all. Okay? So all you have to do, take that original matrix and map the character state changes on those 3 trees. Those are alternative phylogenetic trees, and there are a lot more than that. And that's all you have to do. Let's see, hold on a second. Okay. Okay. So let's look at this one. Let's just do a couple of these. I'm not going to do this entire tree for you, because then you'll get, you'll get a third of your points done. Okay? How do you do this one? Let's look at nucleotide. We have 9. Are there 9 nucleotides in this thing? Did I cut this off? There are 9. Okay. So nucleotide site 1, what do you want to do? And there's incredible support for chimps and humans as sister taxa in all sorts of molecular data. One of these trees is the best, is the resolved tree. Where do you put that tick mark? So all the ancestral states are, all of them have it except 2 species, right? Only chimps and humans have the derived state, so what would you do? Whoa, no. No, yeah, not there, here. Okay. So what that says is that derived state, the C, the derived character state, arose in the common ancestor to humans and chimps. What about, let's do 2. Where do you want this? This is, again, the ancestral versus the, mapping reversion to an ancestral state or independent origins of this. This one's a little trickier. There are going to be 2 tick marks, right? Where do we put them? Yep. So you could put it down at the base of those, right? Right in here. But then you'd have to revert it back to the ancestral state in the human-chimp ancestor. So the best way, and that's what I said on this homework, didn't I? That you do not allow reversion to the ancestral character, don't map reversion to ancestral character state, use the derived, okay? So what you have to do for this one, too, you have to have 2 independent origins of the derived state, which is A, right? On the orangutan and then on the gorilla. Want me to do one more? Okay. Now let's do a really easy one. Let's do 3. Where's that one go? On the siamang, right? Okay. The only derived character state is in the siamang. So where do you put it? Whoops. 3A. Okay. So there you got part of it done. So all I'm asking you to do in this homework problem, this will be due a week from today, is map the character state changes, not doing reversion to ancestral, but independent origins of derived states, and for those 3 trees. And what do you think the best one is? The one I just put up. That'll give you a little hint. So I won't tell you the numbers of each, but okay? Yeah.
Would you put the mark
Okay.
on the right before orangutans? You change the entire one, and then change humans and chimps to T?
You really want me to get, I avoided that one because I wanted you to think about it. Okay, let's do 4. 4 is the tough one because you have 2 derived character states, don't you? C is the ancestral. Orangutans and gorillas have a G, and human and chimps have T's. Yep. I'll give it to you. What I would do is, there are various ways to do this. I'd put a change here, and what would that be? To G. Okay. And now you need another tick mark to another derived character state, and where's that going? Yeah. The humans and chimps need to go to the other derived state, which is T. So all you're saying there is in the common ancestor to all orangutans, gorillas, humans, and chimp, the derived character state was G, and then there was another mutation in the ancestor to human and chimps to the next derived state, which is 4T. And actually, there are lots of, some of these substitutions are more likely than others, and there are all sorts of algorithms to determine that's probably not the way to do it, but that's how we're doing it, okay? Well, you're just kind of that's the easiest way to explain that, is that these all retain the ancestral state, right? And the common ancestor had it here, and the easiest way to map this is to put that change to the derived state of G at 4 along that branch to those, right? See, because gibbons and siams, they all have the ancestral state. So everything's the same here. It's only, that's where the evolutionary change occurred, right? And it's, you would want to put it, why would you not put 4T there? Is that what you're asking? Okay. Yeah. Well, that's going to be more steps. See, what that's going to give you is, this is a simpler way to do it, right? In that you only require one mutation there, and it's maintained through all of these, and the change only occurs in the common ancestors to humans and chimps. So if you did that, you'd have to put a 4G here and a 4G on gorillas. That would give you 3 steps on that tree. So what's that? Yep, 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 yep. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's that, and then the other ones have a lot more changes on them, so it'll be probably a little challenging, but kind of just go through it slowly. And yep. So what you want to do on those 3 trees that are on the second page, you use that original matrix and map the character state changes on all 3 trees. Tell me the number of steps, and then tell me what's the best tree. Okay. Stop this. This is getting long.